I like to dedicate this to all of the Creator's righteous children. I have some food in my bag for you. Not that edible food, that food you eat. No, I have some food for thought. Since knowledge is infinite, it has infinitely fell on me.
Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be like a discovered slash some kind of other video, I don't even know. But I just watched this random movie on Netflix called Little Boxes. And it's not random, it's just, I just have a lot to say about this movie. I was a little annoyed by it, and I mean it's a good movie and all. It's like an indie movie or whatever, but it's not, I mean, okay. So basically the movie is about this family. They're the Burns. And apparently, the mom gets this job offer. Okay, so it's an interracial family, I should say. And it's a black dad, a white mom, dark-skinned dad, white mom, and they have a brown, tan-skinned son with a big afro. So basically, the mom gets a job offer in Washington State, in Rome, Washington State, and basically they have to move from New York City to Washington State, and they move into this little town where percent of people of color, 0%, of black people, 0%, of anybody that's not white, 0. Okay, so then you have this black man and their interracial son moving to this small little town basically full of white people. Okay, all right, strike one. Then you have Clark, and he's one of those kids who doesn't really listen to like mainstream music and is like really on his like cool tip. Like his dad really taught him good, and like he only listens to like 90s hip hop and like jazz and like Afro punk and stuff. And so he's like real like different, right? And his dad really like taught him how to be like that way. And in New York it's easy to be that way, right? Because like people in New York are like the definition of different. So it's like super easy. But then you have the kids that Clark ends up hanging out with, and it's these two white kids, like they're little two white girls, and apparently they're like the popular girls in 6th grade or something. I don't even know. But then he starts hanging out with them, and one of them is, and like he's like 11, right? And the other girls are like, I think one of them is like 11 and one of them is like a little younger, maybe like 10. But the other girl, the youngest one, is like a little firecracker, right? She's like a firecracker who is borderline racist. And I say borderline because she's only 10 years old. So I say borderline racist. And she's also very stereotypical. And they both listen to like this, like, you know, that like, I don't want to stereotype this at all, but like Little Kim music, Foxy Brown music, like whatever. And it's this artist called 2-Bit, which is like this made-up artist that they have, like this hip-hop artist, right? And so, like the whole time, like when they first meet him, they get it really excited because they're like, ooh, a black kid. And then when the Clark comes into their house, they like go and they like talk to each other in private. And the little girl, like the 10-year-old, she's like, oh, great, a black kid. This town could use a black kid. It's like so white. And I'm like, stereotypical, but okay. And then so then basically story goes and goes. So the mom, she's a college professor and she's an art professor, and so she got this job at Rome College. And basically she starts hanging out with the floozies of the teachers, right? And they're floozies who like basically go to lunch every day and get wasted. White girl wasted at its best. And they day drink all the time, and they just don't have lives. Like they teach, but that outside of teaching, all they do is go get drunk every 2 seconds, and it's the worst. So basically she falls into that crowd for a little while and starts like ignoring her family. On the other hand, the dad is working on a novel / he's a chef. And so he's working on that, trying to finish that. And he just watches his wife start acting different and his son start acting different. And then he finds out that his house has mold in it and stuff, and gets really pissed off at the wife because she's like ignoring the family and trying to act stupid and blah blah blah, trying to fit in. And then you have Clark, who over time he starts hanging out with the two girls, and basically the one little girl starts turning him into like a hood rat. And when I say that, I mean, so these two little white girls, they want him to be stereotypical AF. They want him to be so stereotypical, and that's not Clark. That's not Clark. He's on that cool tip, but then they want him to be super stereotypical. And there's this one scene where, and it gets on my nerves. It gets on my nerves so much. But there's this one scene where Clark and the little girl, I think her name was Ambrosia or something, which that's not a white girl name, but whatever. So Clark and Ambrosia had just went swimming, right? And she ends up making adult grown-up drinks, as she calls them, for them. And then they go into the other girl's room. And the other girl just is like this, she like hangs out with her, but she's like the nice girl. Like, she's a nice girl who just has like a lot of money and it just wants to be popular and whatever. And she doesn't really like, she wants to be friends with Clark. She doesn't want to be like that kind of friend, but she just wants to be friends with him. Like, it's whatever. So, but then Ambrosia's little fast butt, they're in the room together, and Clark and her are just like hanging out. And then they notice, because they just got out of the pool or the jacuzzi or whatever, they notice that their bathing suits are wet and they're getting the bed wet because it has like sheets and stuff on it. So she's like, oh, look at the spots on the bed. And so then she's like, we should change. And she's like, do you want to see me change? And then Clark's like, okay. Like, he doesn't know. He doesn't actually know. He's just trying to fit in, which makes sense. So then Clark like hides behind the curtain so that no one can see him, and he's like staring at her, and she's like trying to like do a striptease, and I'm like, you're 10, you're freaking 10 years old, stop it, where are your freaking parents? So then anyways, they end up like playing together and whatever, and she doesn't have her top on, right? And they're just playing. They're not even like doing anything that's inappropriate. But then they end up on the bed together and they're just like wrestling. And then her mom comes in, and basically she like scolds her and gets like really pissed off. And so then when Clark gets home, he gets in trouble for it, right? And at the same time, his cousin's in town. So then the little girl, she has like this pool party or whatever. And Clark gets invited, but he can't actually go because he's grounded, but he goes anyways. And so Clark's mom comes to the party to like find out about his friends, because she never met him because she's never home. And so when she goes to the party to meet the friend, the little girl, Ambrosia, she like looks at Clark, because she had met his dad one time, and she saw his dad was dark skinned. So she automatically in her head assumed that he was a black kid, you know what I mean? Like two black parents. And that wasn't the case. And so when she finds out that he's, you know, half, she storms up to her room and gets really pissed off. And then when he's like, I'm sorry, I've been ignoring you, you know, things happen, blah blah blah, she's like, oh, Clark, why didn't you tell me? And he's like, what? And she's like, why didn't you tell me? I thought you were, and I had this idea, and it's like, yeah, little girl, you had this idea that he was all black when he wasn't even really all black. He was just, you know, half. And, you know, it was just annoying because throughout this whole movie, like, because they're in a super small town, people say a lot of racist stuff. And so the whole time that they're there, they just say a bunch of racist stuff. Like, the girls, the teachers that the wife, Gina, is hanging out with, like, they're about to have lunch. And the husband is, like, across the street. And he's, like, talking to the book owner because he wrote a book before. And the book owner had, the bookstore owner had gotten the book to come to their bookstore. So he's, like, talking to them, blah, blah, blah. Then he sees his wife across the street. So he goes over there to say hi and see what they're doing. And she's like, oh, well, yeah, we're going to lunch or whatever. And then some, like, racist stuff comes out of their mouth. And it's just like, okay. Like they start talking like kind of like superiority complex. They, like, start talking and, like fancy language or whatever, trying to make it seem like, oh, well, of course you wouldn't know what I'm saying because you're black. And it's like, really? Anyways, so then basically Clark gets his feelings hurt because the little girl is like racist, and he gets his little feelings hurt, and then his dad, who I was really annoyed by the way, he tries to comfort him and be like, because he was like, I hate all white people, and I'm like, okay, like, you shouldn't hate all white people. In my head, I'm like, you know, you shouldn't hate all white people, but I mean, and so he's like, I hate all white people, and then the dad's like, but your mom, and he's like, you can't hate all white people, you know, you can't hate groups of people, you can only, you know, hate individuals because you can't stereotype a group of people. And then he's like, yeah, but they stereotype me. And I was like, yes, Clark, they do stereotype you. You have every right to be mad. Like, that was, the little girl was just ignorant the whole entire movie. Like, there was this one scene where her and her brother, they were like at this diner, and her brother works at the diner, right? And they were like ordering food. So first the one friend gets food, and then he asks his sister what she wanted. And then she tries to do the stupid race joke, and it was like the worst joke on planet Earth. And I was like, are you serious? Are you kidding me right now? Worst race joke on planet Earth. But she had issues because her mom had issues, because Clark was really pissed off at, you know, Ambrosia for saying what she said. So he like went over to her house in the middle of the night and like took a rock and broke her window. So the mom comes over to their house the next day, and she's like, look, I saw Clark break my window, and it costs $200. Basically, you need to pay for it, or I'm going to call the cops on Clark because he's 11 years old, and he shouldn't have broke my window, and blah, blah, blah. And then the dad goes off on her about profiling, and she's like, look, I know you think I'm racist, and you know I think I'm like low class, but I'm not. And I was like, yeah, you really are. You and your daughter are the two most racist people in this movie, but okay. And then it was just this movie, okay? And I was like getting really annoyed because after the scene, then they go inside, the mom and the dad go inside, and they have this argument about culture and about stereotyping and about profiling. And you know, the dad gets pissed off because he's like, no one's gonna profile my son. Like, even though because Clark didn't tell his parents he broke the window, but when they find out, they get mad at him, whatever. But at first he lies and says he didn't do it. So the dad gets pissed off because he's like, no one's gonna profile my son. And then the mom is like, yeah, I understand, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you don't understand. And I'm like, yeah, you don't understand. It's hard. And then she was like, yeah, but it's hard for me because I'm the pale one out of you two shades of darker, whatever the hell she said. It was stupid. And I was like, you know what? Save your tears for somebody who cares. Like, you don't have to go through what they have to go through. And this is basically what I want to talk about right now. It's basically the fact that people of color, black people specifically, want to marry outside of their race. And that's fine. That's 100% fine. I don't care. I'm not one of those people who's going to be like, stay in your lane, marry people that are in your race so that they understand the struggle. I'm not going to go like that, because I have a cousin who's actually married to a white lady, and I have another cousin who is gay who is married to a white guy, and they adopted, and they have two cute little kids, and it's really awesome. Like, you know, I don't have problems with that. Like, my brother is married to a Korean. Like, I don't have problems with that. What I have problems with, and this is something that I think needs to be addressed, is that I have a problem with when black men or women marry a white woman or a man and they have an interracial child. They don't take the time, because their mother is white or their father is white, they do not take the time to really instill and educate their child on what is going on in this world. Because it does not matter if your mom is white, it does not matter if your dad is white. If you look like a black-skinned person, then it does not matter. It does not matter. If your skin is a shade darker than tan, then it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. You can have the whitest mom or the whitest dad on planet Earth. That's not going to save you when people want to be racist. That's not going to save you when people want to be stereotypical. That's not going to save you from the police shooting you in the middle of the streets. It's not. It's just not going to save you. And so that was something about this movie that I thought needed to be addressed a lot, was the fact that interracial couples need to talk to their child probably even more than black kids do. Probably even more than black parents need to talk to black kids. Interracial parents need to talk to their kids, because, you know, they're going to be dealt with a bunch of hardship. They're going to be not black enough, they're going to be not white enough, and they're going to be stereotyped like hell. And it's going to be sad, and they're going to feel some type of way about it. Like, Clark was in his right for feeling bad about Ambrosia saying that he wasn't, you know, black enough because he had a white mom, or the fact that she stereotyped him. Like, that was messed up. That was really, really messed up, and he did not deserve that. And I completely understand why he was mad. He should not have broke the window, but he was mad. Like, he was really effing mad. Like, I would be pissed off if somebody tried to stereotype me that way. And, you know, the way that the girls were, like, fetishizing this rapper, right? And the one time, they were sitting on the couch, right? The girls and Clark, they were sitting on this couch. And the older girl comes up to Clark, and she's like, do you know who Two-Bit is? And he's like, yeah. I mean, I listened to her, but yeah. And she's like, you know, she used to be a hoe, but now she makes money. And she said it in a kind of way where she was like, almost like, praising her for, like, being a hoe and then making money off of her rap career. She's like praising that. And I'm not saying anything of whatever. But at the same time, like, little white girl, you are fetishizing my culture, my people, and black women in general. And I don't appreciate that. Like, that really got on my nerves in the movie. Now, they used to live in New York, right? So this family used to live in New York, and they moved to Rome, Washington. Now, I've only been to Washington State once, and I got to be in Olympia, Washington, and also Seattle. And I was only there a couple of days, so I wasn't there long enough for it to really, like, you know, hit me. But I'm sure that these places are small towns. Like, not Seattle, really, but, you know, other places I'm sure were really super small towns. And that's fine. I'm not saying anything about any kind of small town, because I grew up in a small town. But I think the difference between me growing up in a small town and other people is that I live closer to a big city than most people do. And so, for me, it was never really an issue growing up about how black I was or how whatever. Like, yeah, I'm a light-skinned black chick, and I embrace that every single day. That does not take away from my blackness, and that does not take away from anything. And luckily, I've been able to not be stereotyped at all. And I'm grateful and lucky for that. But I totally can understand how Clark was feeling, because it's just messed up. It's messed up that these things have to happen and these stereotypes have to be perpetuated by people who have never actually met a black person in the flesh. And that's what happened with these two little girls. They had never met a black person in the flesh, so they were stereotyping him off of what they saw in music videos. They were stereotyping him off of things that they saw on TV. Like, it was horrible. And I was like, A, your stereotypes are super outdated, so can we get some current stereotypes? Thank you. And B, just don't do it. Like, that's annoying. Like, that's really, really annoying. And, you know, I felt bad for the husband too, because he was trying to make friends with this one guy, right? And, you know, they had went to a bar together and were, like, hanging out because he found out that the guy was a writer as well. So they were, like, hanging out, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so then they were at the bar, and this guy was trying to make this speech about, you know, how he was, you know, friends with this guy and whatever. He was going to write a book in Rome, and it was going to be cool and whatever. But then at the end, he had to go and say, yeah, and, you know, it's easy to forget that he's even black, or something like that. And I was like, really? Like, really? Like, seriously? And it's just sad. And I feel so bad for, like, black people that live in these small towns who have to be so stereotyped like that, because they're so, like, I know that these people have never seen, like, people of color, let alone a black person, in their life, and they don't know how to handle all of this, like, you know, all of this beauty and all of this melanin. They just can't handle it. They don't know. And so all they know is these movies, TV shows, and music videos. And they're not good representations of who we are. And the ones that are good representations, they're not watching them. And that's why I have an issue. You know, I love hip hop, but I do have an issue with that in hip hop, is that they give white people these bad stereotypes of who we are, and then they think that, you know, people in, you know, these small towns in these places that don't have a big population of people of color and don't really have any black people, they only know them from music videos and what they see on TV, and they don't know how we actually operate. You know, yeah, of course there are people out there, black people out there, that act that way, but not all of us do. And so to stereotype a whole culture like that is just wrong. But anyways, I'm rambling at this point. So do I recommend watching Little Boxes? I think so. I think it's an okay movie. It's a good little indie flick. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I just watched it because I was bored, but I think, you know, I just think that this would have been a better movie if they really actually taught a better lesson to Clark about being an interracial child, because he's gonna go through that phase where he doesn't like white people, and it just is what it is, and he can't hate them because his mom is white, and it sucks. And then it's like, you know, that he's gonna go through his anti-black phase, and he's gonna be mad at his dad. It's gonna be like flipping the coin and not having it easy on either side, and it's gonna suck. So I don't know, check it out if you want to. It's on Netflix, called Little Boxes. And if you're an interracial person, I definitely recommend checking it out. You might find, you know, some relatability in this movie. But yeah, this is just my 2 cents on the whole movie. And yeah, I'm gonna go because I don't know what else to say. So until next time, boys and girls, girls and boys, indigos and starseeds, peace and blessings.